It's Micah Parsons against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. What could be better than that on Sunday Night Football? We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Packers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. And on today's show, we're going to talk about some keys to victory for both teams, if there are any for the Cowboys. We'll talk about the biggest matchups to watch, and I guess the biggest storylines. I can't think of any big ones that are coming off the top of my brain. Anything for you, Peter?
Mike McCarthy revenge game. Oh, that's right. Mike McCarthy's not the coach anymore.
I forgot about that. Matt Eberflus against the former division rival?
Yeah, okay. Maybe.
All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Micah Parsons' first game back against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones has already said there will not be any kind of like tribute video for Micah. This is a business game for the Cowboys. They're not having any of this Micah Parsons shenanigans. For you, obviously Mike is the biggest storyline here, but what are you looking forward to see?
So interestingly, I don't think that for the Packers, I don't think that's the biggest storyline. I mean, I think for Micah Parsons, it certainly is. But for this Packers team is coming off a really dispiriting loss to the Cleveland Browns. I think that is what they're focused on. They are focusing on this offense getting back to being what they're all about, pushing the ball down the field if they can do that. And so I think for me, that's the storyline that is most salient for the Packers and for Packers fans. Would they love to see Micah Parsons go off and have one of those just like signature 3.5 sack dominating performances? Yeah, sure. They would love that. But for for the Packers to really feel good about where they're headed, this is a defense that loves to give up explosive plays, does not have an impact pass rusher like Myles Garrett or anything close to it. They used to. He plays in Green Bay now. And so this is a defense that they feel like they can get after. You joke about paths to victory. I did a show last week with Spencer German, Marcus, and we were doing that. We were twisting ourselves in knots, trying to like laughing about a Browns path to victory, and the Browns won. So for the Packers, this is let's go get right against the Cowboys. I think it's less for them, at least, about Micah Parsons.
And there's no such thing as a must-win game in, September, but it does feel that way for both sides a little bit. Like from the Cowboys perspective, right? They're 1-2. You lose this game, you're 1-3, and things start to get dark really quick, especially with how good the NFC is. And I would assume same for the Packers, right? I mean, they're 2-1, but because of the division they play in and because of how good Detroit looked on Monday Night Football, and the Vikings have bounced back a little bit, it feels like this is a game they have to win to at least just keep pace with everybody else in that division.
Yeah, it's the comparison that I've made is like if you're a golf fan on par fives on the PGA Tour, if you make par, you are usually giving up a shot to the field. Yep. These are the sorts of games where you just have to win. Like you're going to play enough good teams that you're going to get beat. You're going to play the Ravens. The Packers play the Ravens, the Eagles. They have to go to Minnesota. They have to go to Detroit still. They have tough games left on the schedule. These are the games. No Tyler Booker, no CeeDee Lamb, a defense that has already just been barbecue chicken through the last 3 weeks. Like Russell Wilson had a career game against them and gets benched like 8 days later. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you have to go and take care of business if you're the Packers, and you can't think this is the Browns. You can't think this is a team that you should just walk all over, that you can just show up and beat. I think they kind of did that last week, Marcus, and it bit them in the ass. They can't look at it that way. They have to get up for this game, and I do think the Micah Parsons revenge factor, like everyone knows what the deal is with Micah. And the fact that he has had the kind of impact that he's had here, I think that brings so much more juice. Plus it's prime time. It's in Dallas where the Packers, where certainly Aaron Rodgers, but the Packers over the years have had a lot of success. I think that helps them in that way.
Yeah. And for the Cowboys, this is I don't want to say it's a pride thing, but they played so poorly against the Bears last week. You're at home. You mentioned big time stage. what kind of fight do you have in this game? You are way undermanned when it comes to talent. And even if the Cowboys were healthy, they would have been in trouble here. But you mentioned it. No CeeDee Lamb. No Jonathan Mingo, who would have been, a guy that could potentially replace CeeDee Lamb in the starting lineup. No Tyler Booker. No Cooper Beebe. So that's 2/5 of your offensive line that are out. The defense has been an issue all year long. I think for Cowboy fans, this is a big game to see what they have in Brian Schottenheimer, because if they come out and lay an egg and there's just no fight and it's clear that things are going in the wrong direction, that's going to be really concerning. But if the Cowboys make this a game, and I'm not saying win, but if they could keep it close to the fourth quarter and you see the effort there and you see them playing above their talent level, I think even in a loss, that could get you excited about the direction of this team long-term.
Well, and the difference between last week and this week, for at least for a Packers opponent standpoint, is Dak Prescott. Like, we've seen Dak Prescott carry inferior talent over the years. I mean, he's had to. Now, that was, like with CeeDee Lamb, no run game, no offensive line. This is now George Pickens. But we know what George Pickens, from a combustibility standpoint, is capable of doing, creating big plays and all those things. Dak is not going to get fooled. He's going to be able to move enough to make some plays here. And so if you're the Packers, you have to be, on your P's and Q's, certainly on that side of the ball, understanding, like, if you get into a shootout, that can go touchdown for touchdown against the defense if the defense is not playing particularly well. Now, the flip side of that, and we'll get into this matchup, I'm sure, later in the show, Marcus, but the Packers have allowed the fewest explosives in terms of passes this year. And so if you're going to have a defense that's going to keep you in a game from that standpoint, like if George Pickens, if he catches 3 40-yard passes, that could be, a huge thing. The Packers don't give up those big explosive plays. And so if they play to their normal defensive standard, that makes it tough.
All right, let's take 2 minutes to talk about the Micah thing, because I have no doubt that Micah is going to show up and play at a high level. Like, he always gets really juiced up for these games. So I have no doubt that he's going to play well. What I'm really curious to see is, how do the Cowboys handle Micah and really just the Packers pass rush overall? Because I think they're going to want to try to run the ball, so they're not in all these drop back situations. No. And I think Dak's going to want to get rid of the ball quickly. So, you don't have these long developing plays where Parsons can win. But this feels like, with the Cowboys offensive line situation, one of those, Micah Parsons, this is why he's worth everything the Packers gave up to get him.
Well, and I had Terrence Parsons Jr. on the show earlier in the week, and he was talking about, no video. Mike is going to take that personally. Like, after all we did for that team. I mean, Terrence is still a Cowboys fan. He grew up a Cowboys fan. This is hard for him. And look, there was that quote. I thought Adam Schefter did a pretty despicable job of putting context on the quote when he put out, like, it's going to be painful to sack Dak, and it makes it seem like he's trying to hurt Dak Prescott. What he said was, if you read the whole quote, is it's going to be painful because he cares about Dak Prescott and that team. And it's a reminder of this fissure that happened between those two teams. Matt LaFleur addressed it on Wednesday, said, I'm not worried about Micah freelancing and trying to do too much because Micah Parsons can just be Micah Parsons and wreck a game. He doesn't have to do anything extra. Now, do I think they're going to move him around and maybe do some special things with him? Yeah, but they were already doing that, Marcus. Like, that's already built in here. They're moving him around as a queen on the chessboard type of piece anyway. Head up over the guard, head up double A, mug pressures. They're going to do everything they can to try and mess with an offensive line that has had its problems and is now going to play without their first round pick.
And that's nothing new for Dallas. I mean, that's the same way they use Micah Parsons.
Right.
So there's going to be nothing that they see on Sunday night that's new to them. Like, they've seen Parsons wreck practices when you've got a guy over at the tackle chipping him. They've seen him wreck practices, going one-on-one against your center.
Yeah. Now, I know we got to get to a break, Marcus, but I do have to point out Rashawn Gary leads the NFL in sacks right now. And Lucas Van Ness has double-digit pressures. They're the only team in the league with 4 players who have double-digit pressures. It's not just Micah Parsons. The rest of this defensive front can wreck a game too.
Great. I'm so happy for you. Let's talk about some key matchups to watch on Sunday night. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's same game parlays, whether it's player props, or even jumping in as the live action unfolds. Like, my favorite thing lately is just to do some money line parlays. Grab a couple teams that you want to watch on a Sunday, throw them in a parlay, and then enjoy your Sundays. Like, I don't enjoy watching my team right now. So if I can bet on some other teams, it's a lot of fun. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy and juice to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is brought to you by Wayfair. When you think game day, you might not think Wayfair, but you should, because Wayfair is the best kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season, whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room. What I love the most is their selection. Wayfair has unique finds and options for every budget so that I can show off my team spirit without having to overspend. Plus, the delivery was free, fast, and hassle-free, which is an absolute lifesaver when you need something in time for kickoff. From outdoor essentials like folding chairs and patio heaters to indoor must-haves like TV stands and serveware, Wayfair has it all in one place. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day, from coolers to grills to recliners and slow cookers. Shop, save, and score today at Wayfair.com. That is Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Packers podcast. Peter, let's talk about some matchups that you are going to be watching here on Sunday. What do you got?
I think I mentioned it at the top. This Cowboys secondary pass defense in general against Jordan Love and the Packers offense. Through the first 2 weeks, Jordan Love was leading the NFL in average depth of target by 3 full yards, depending on whose charting you were looking at. It was like 2 to 3, and had an average depth of target of less than 2 against the Browns. His time to pressure against the Browns was 1.99. No one in the NFL with any number of attempts has gotten rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds this year, with any number of attempts. So it was just untenable what this offense looked like last week and the pressure that they were under. It's one of the worst offensive line performances I can remember by a Green Bay Packers team. Them getting back on track this week against a team that has some issues generating pass rush. I saw a stat, Donovan Ezraku, the rookie, his pass rush win rate is like some astronomically low number. I saw someone quoted at 0, which has to be wrong.
0 from last week. Yeah, he didn't have any wins last week.
Okay, no wins last week. I was like, okay, that's crazy. Yeah. And I liked Donovan Ezraku, by the way, in the draft. But they just have not been able to find pressure. And then guys just running free through that zone coverage, in part because they can't play man coverage. But Matt Eberflus in general doesn't play a ton of that, or at least didn't until the end, really, with Chicago. So them finding opportunities here. And I want to put a finer point on it. It's Matthew Golden. I think this is the Matthew Golden breakout week, Marcus. Should have had a 95-yard touchdown last week if he could have found a way to stay in bounds. Jordan Love just missed him on a 95-yard touchdown 2 weeks ago. Just missed him on a 35-yard touchdown 2 weeks ago. Like Matthew Golden could be leading the NFL in receiving right now today. If 3 throws go slightly differently. I think that he's going to find more opportunities in this Cowboys secondary. I know that they're going to focus right on some of that stuff. Guys running wide open. You mentioned how embarrassing that was for them last week. The problem is, like, do they have the players to fix it? I don't know.
I don't know either. Now, the expectation, and again, this is Jerry Jones talking, so take it with the tiniest grain of salt, is that DaRon Bland, the Cowboys all-pro corner, is going to play in this game after missing the last couple of weeks with a foot injury. We'll see. I'm not sure about that, but if he does play, this defense is completely different. And we saw it in the Philadelphia game when Bland and Diggs play together. Like, they can keep everything in front of them. The issue has been when they don't have DaRon Bland, now you're playing some corners out there that shouldn't be on NFL rosters, right? Like, just to be honest. And Bland does change the angles a little bit here, but I have to imagine even a 75% healthy DaRon Bland will help. It's still not a good pass defense.
If you can't pressure Jordan Love, you just have no shot. His productivity from a clean pocket this year has taken a noticeable jump up. He's had really good answers for the blitz this year. This is his best season as a pro so far. I mean, it's only been 3 games handling the blitz. So the biggest problems have come when 4-man pressures have been able to get home. And that's just not been what the Cowboys have been able to do. What, from your perspective, Micah, Marcus, what is the biggest thing that you think will decide this game for Dallas?
Hey, it's a Kenny Clark revenge game, right? The Packers just traded away this really good.
He's been really good.
He has been really good. And honestly, that's how the Cowboys win this game, is if you look at the interior offensive line of Green Bay, it has not performed up to what you think, right? And no Zach Tom this week at right tackle. So that's obviously an issue, but it's going to have to be Kenny Clark and Osa Odighizuwa. If those guys can stop the run and get Green Bay into some of these third and long, maybe that's when we see more blitzing. Maybe that's when we start to see Matt Eberflus use some of the slot blitzes that he's done at times this year. But if the Cowboys want to have any chance, it's those two up front. And we did see last week, like, Cleveland's defensive tackles played really well. Mason Graham had the game of his life against Green Bay last week. Clark and Osa Odighizuwa have to dominate if the Cowboys want to have a chance.
It was all about the inability to pick up the stunts, the twists, all of the different games that they were running up front. Now, part of that is the Packers had sent a ton of help toward Myles Garrett. And for my money, way too much. They played scared of Myles Garrett, and I think it affected everything about their play calling. There were a couple times they had an RPO where it's like, I think technically it was a play action pass, not an RPO. And if it had been not a receiver screen, the middle of the field is wide open. And like, those are the opportunities that you have. But they played scared. And so I don't think they will play scared of the Cowboys defense. That's the difference. But you still have to pass off a stunt. You still have to be able to do that. And until the Packers show they can do it, teams are going to keep calling it. And I would say it's not Kenny Clark's forte anymore. He used to be, because his movement skills have, he's now an older player. But that's still, Odighizuwa certainly is capable of doing that, has the agility to do stuff like that, can win with quickness. The Packers have to get that ironed out. We don't even know who's going to play, Marcus. Like, is Aaron Banks going to play left guard? Is it going to be Jordan Morgan? Are they going to, if Anthony Belton is the right tackle, the rookie Anthony Belton, is Jordan Morgan going to rotate in at right guard? Is he going to play left guard? What's the situation there? We don't actually know. And that sets up for some questions, given how this offensive line performed last week.
One more matchup that I'm keeping an eye on, it's really the Cowboys' run game against the Packers' run defense. We saw Quinshon Judkins have a lot of success last week, and that's with a statue at quarterback in Joe Flacco, who wasn't going to scare them at all, in a patchwork offensive line. Even without Tyler Booker and even without Cooper Beebe, the Cowboys feel like they can out-physical Green Bay. Now, will they do that? I don't know. Well, I have my doubts, and I think that's sometimes good in theory to talk about on a Thursday and Friday, and then you get to the prime time. We'll see. But the Cowboys have been really good at running the ball this year. And they believe with Brock Hoffman and TJ Bass, the two backups, that they can still run the ball. And I think without
Monte Williams, a resurgent season from him. Yeah, he looked awesome.
And I think the Cowboys, without CeeDee Lamb, they're going to load up on tight ends. Brevin Spanford is the highest graded run blocking tight end in the league. And they're going to just try to run the ball 25, 30 times, keep the possessions down. You can only do that for so long if your defense is just getting gashed. But I think that's the plan here for Dallas.
That's interesting. The Packers do have a top 10 run defense, but they are smaller in the interior than they were with Kenny Clark. And, Nazir Stackhouse, who's an undrafted free agent that they brought in from Georgia, has not played a ton. Now, I will say their linebackers, especially if you're going to try and run outside the tackles, they were outstanding.
Incredible. Yeah.
Even against guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, like they can fly with Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. So it has to be on those downhill runs where they're going to come down and you're hoping, Quay jumps in the wrong gap, or Edgerrin Cooper gets engulfed, or he tries to shoot a gap, and all of a sudden you're digging him out on a trap play or something like that. But the Packers do play a decent amount of single high safety. They will put extra bodies in the box to handle the run. And if Dak Prescott can't create down the field one-on-one to George Pickens, the Packers are just going to live in that world and be happy to do it.
All right, let's talk about some keys to victory for both teams. Obviously, the window or the path is a little bit smaller here for the Cowboys. How did the Cowboys and the Packers get a win on Sunday? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your favorite team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a pain between login screens and prices jumping at checkout. It's all incredibly frustrating, but that's why I only use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I love that I can see exactly what my view is going to look like in the seats in the app before you buy. It's one of my favorite features in the Game Time app. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Packers and Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL show. 2 podcasts every single day, 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Peter, how did the Packers win this game? Like what couple things do they need to do to secure a victory and improve to 3-1?
I think it's protect Jordan Love. That is job one. And I said last week, job 1, 2, 3, and 4 is protect or is block Myles Garrett. There is not a player like that for the Dallas Cowboys. But if they can protect Jordan Love, I think they're going to be enough opportunities against this Cowboys team to generate explosives, to convert on third down. For all the issues the Packers had last week, third down was not one of them. They actually performed pretty well on third down overall. It was that they couldn't get out of their own way. It's false starts, it's penalties. And that's the second part of this. Just get rid of the pre-snap penalties. The pre-snap penalties were killers last week. There were 3rd and 1 becomes 3rd and 6. 3rd and 4 becomes 3rd and 9. Like that kind of stuff, especially against a team that, let's be honest, like the Cowboys are not as good as the Packers.
No.
You lose games in the NFL because you don't play like the better team. When you are the more talented team, if you don't play like it, you're going to lose. Like the talent difference is small. This is not college, where you go out and you play our little sisters of perpetual sorrow in week 1 to get ready for your actual season. It doesn't happen like that. So that's protect Jordan Love and the pre-snap penalties. Micah Parsons lined up offsides on the final drive, gifted the Browns 5 yards. The Browns couldn't get 5 yards of play all game. They were averaging 3.9 yards per play all game. You just gift them 5 yards. That kind of stuff can't. And by the way, Micah took responsibility for that, said they didn't bring me here to be offsides, but he's lined up offsides, I think, like in every game. Line up onside. Come on. And it's those kinds of little mistakes. They just can't happen. They didn't happen in week 1. The Packers, I believe, had 3 penalties in week 1. Then they had 10 and 14 the last 2 weeks. Get rid of those penalties. And I just feel like the talent then wins out.
And for Dallas, it's all about winning in the margins, right? Because you're right. They are not as good as the Packers, even when they're fully healthy. You know, this is a team on FanDuel that had a win projection of 7.5 with Micah Parsons, right? Like they're clearly not the better team, but that doesn't mean you can't win games like this. And it starts for me on special teams. The Cowboys have a really good special teams unit with Brandon Aubrey, who for my money is the best kicker in the NFL. Yeah. Brian Anger, one of the better punters in the league. Kevontae Turpin, probably the best kick returner. You're going to have to make plays in that phase of the game to make up for, an offense that has injuries and a defense that's not very good. So can you block a kick like Cleveland did last week? Can you have better field positions? I know it was a lot of fun. Can you start drives at the 38-yard line rather than the 22 and give your offense a shorter field?
Yeah.
That's the kind of things you have to get. If the Cowboys lose a special teams battle, they have absolutely no chance on Sunday. None.
Well, the good news for Dallas is Rich Bisaccia has not fixed the special teams. The special teams have been a problem really every year for the Packers to some degree, whether it's the kicker. They fixed the kicker with Brandon McManus, but like Brandon McManus, the kick that got blocked was a low kick on a makeable, like we're talking about a low 40s yard field goal. Like this should have been a gimme. They got blown up on the interior to get that block. Shelby Harris, one of the best in the NFL at doing that, but still, like that's ridiculous. So that is a problem. And I said it during the week. I said one of the paths for the Browns is specialty. You return a kick for a touchdown or you block a punt. I didn't think blocking the game-winning field goal would be on the docket there, but that's what happened. And so I think you're right. The special teams piece of that, like for the Packers, just don't lose emphatically. Don't have a punt blocked. Don't have a kick blocked. If Brandon Aubrey is going to make a 60-yarders, like that's fine. You're not going to lose on 6 60-yard kicks.
Yeah. The other thing for the Cowboys is just.
Although I do remember 1996 when was it? Who was the kicker in 96? Was that Boniol?
Chris Boniol. Yeah.
And he made seven field goals to beat the Packers in Dallas the year they won the Super Bowl. It was 21 points. And I remember like I had to go to bed because I was 9 or whatever. And I woke up and I saw the final score and I was like, oh, and then I realized it was field goals. And I was like, oh, come on, Green Bay. Like, you couldn't score any points.
It's not like Mason Crosby didn't get them back,
Listen,
a little bit later.
Look, I'm offering a heartfelt memory about a Cowboys win. You gotta go with me on that.
Last thing before we go, we're not going to do predictions, but Landon McCool, my co-host, we were talking about this game. We think if the Cowboys were to pull off this upset, they are currently, I think, 7-point underdogs right now on FanDuel. It might be the biggest upset that they've had, especially from an emotional standpoint, in the last 20 years. And I know a week 4 game really doesn't feel like a big upset.
No, but I don't think that's crazy. Like, I really don't, because of the Micah Parsons factor.
Yeah.
Because of the expectations coming in, because of CeeDee Lamb, because of Tyler Booker, it would be a little bit like the 2015 game, right? The Matt Flynn game when the Packers come in and they come back from 2 touchdowns down to beat the Cowboys in Dallas.
That's a great memory. It's fine.
But you flip it. And it would feel like that, even though Dak Prescott is not Matt Flynn, obviously. But that is interesting. And that I think there is quietly more pressure on Green Bay in a game where they are favored by a touchdown.
Because everybody thinks that Green Bay is going to win this game, and they're going to win going away.
I agree, but I think there's quietly more pressure on Green Bay than maybe the average fan would realize in a spot like this because of what you're saying. Like, it would just be a huge lift for the Cowboys season if they could win a game like this. Like, you can treat it, and I don't know if Brian Schottenheimer is going to, but you could treat it like your Super Bowl. Hey, we win this game, and the rest of our season is out in front of us. We lost a game we probably should have won in week 1, frankly. And you have a brain fart game last week. Both of these teams kind of coming off those kinds of games where you have a Murphy's Law finish. It would. Now you're making me nervous that this would be the biggest upset in 20 years. But I think that also says something about the Cowboys. Like, they've been a pretty good team for a long time. They haven't been in a position to upset anybody by a touchdown since like Quincy Carter. This has just been a good, steady franchise, even if they haven't been a Super Bowl contender for 20 years now.
I'd like to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Make sure you follow Peter on Twitter at Peter_Bukowski. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy Sunday Night Football, and we'll see you guys back here on Friday.